Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the San Bernardino line preview. I did get a chance to watch it live. For those of you that were there and in the chat, you probably saw me. I was actually very active in the chat for this stream, not so much on the West Coast mainline South, mainly because I was doing other things and trying to watch. I wasn't fully engaged, but my thoughts on this are definitely a lot more positive than West Coast mainline South. So of course, we got to take a peek at the brand new MP36 that's coming with the game, which we are getting a brand new rebuilt version. The team did confirm it's been basically for the most part rebuilt. There's brand new sounds, so it's not going to be like the one that we already received as a loco add-on for the Peninsula Corridor, which I did talk about in the chat at one point, how I would love to see a Peninsula Corridor remaster, but honestly, I don't expect that anytime soon. One thing in particular that really blew me away was the modeling at the stations. The architecture was really good. I did really like the work that was done for that, and also they did a really good job on the scenery. You know, in my opinion, I mean, I don't live on the West Coast. I don't know how accurate a lot of this stuff is, but as far as, you know, the tree placement, the bushes, shrubs, and even like the grass and rocks, like there were a lot of little tiny details that were really sticking out to me along the route, which is really important. So I really was a fan of the scenery specifically. So when it comes to the timetable, I can't really speak on that. I don't know if there are any missing services. Granted, I do know that this route isn't super busy in real life. It's no New York to Trenton, New Jersey transit timetable. So, you know, I know there aren't going to be hundreds and hundreds of trains going in and out of LA Union, but there was a decent amount of traffic in this preview, at least on one of the first services that they drove. They did talk about that if you have Cajon Pass, you're going to get BNSF, and if you have Sherman Hill, you're going to get Union Pacific, and if you have both, well, you're going to get both. So there are freight layers. The weekend is going to be more freight focused, but I think the timetable looks really good. So the next thing that I want to talk about is not necessarily a positive, are the track shadows. So you can see, no, not just at the junctions, because we already knew that the smooth and newly improved track shadows don't work at the junction points, at least for now. I hope that they have plans to improve on that in the future. The shadows aren't always loading in where they should be. They mentioned that they're using some new tool or new software, new coding. I don't know what the technology is, but it draws out the shadows for the tracks a lot farther ahead of the train, so you don't see them constantly popping in. Well, there were definitely times in the stream, even on sections of track that weren't junctions, where that shadow was jumping in and popping in right in front of the train, and a lot of us in the chat were pointing this out to them. Dovetail did respond. I believe Matt had mentioned something during the stream at one point saying, you know, the track shadows are smooth, they do load far ahead of the train, and what you're seeing is ballast shadows, which are different. I hope that sometime in the future we get some sort of improvement and update with those to make those smoother, because that again is also another immersion killer for me. I honestly feel like the ballast shadows are even more important than the track shadows themselves, because they cover a larger area and they're more noticeable. But I don't know, maybe the game was just running a little slower for them that day. Maybe it was OBS, but also at the same time, I don't want to sit on here and make excuses for that, because, you know, this is a core feature that's coming with Trains in World 5. So you would expect that something like that would actually be implemented and working correctly. And even though Matt did mention it's the ballast, there definitely were times when the track shadows were popping in. Then for a while they were smooth and there wasn't an issue, and then the issue came back, and we could all visibly see that happening. Like right here, you don't see it happening. The track shadows are there, but later on in the stream, you do see it. All right, so you actually see it right here. There are small moments where you actually see them popping in. It's right about here where my mouse is, and also where the mouse in the stream is. Right there, yeah, it's happening a lot. And I know know it's small and it just feels kind of dumb to complain about that, but when they advertise this as a selling point feature and you see them moving slowly in for the most part, but then periodically start to fall back, then load in, it gives us the opposite effect of what they're promising us for this game, which is more immersion. Now, the lighting I do feel like is a general improvement versus what we saw in West Coast Mainline South. I don't remember any tunnel portions during the day, so I can't speak on that, but you know, one selling point for this route is the track, basically in the center of the highway. Look at how the cars are floating. We're still dealing with that problem of cars floating. A complete immersion killer. Like, look on the left side of the highway. Those cars are just hovering on top of the highway. Also, not to mention the lighting on the roads too. Like, why is the road so highly reflective? It should not be that reflective. There's definitely a lot of work that needs to go into the lighting, but I think that is definitely more of a core issue. Look right there. You see the shadows of the track popping in right in front of the train. It was happening right as I was talking there. You guys pay attention to that. You're definitely going to see it a lot, especially on these straight pieces of track where the sun is angled directly at the train. I definitely think that there needs to be some work on it. And one thing that has also really bothered me for a long time is look at how the lighting on the track ballast itself does not match the lighting on the texture of the ground around it. It literally looks like one of those plastic model railroad pieces. Like you just stuck the track down there. It doesn't seamlessly flow and blend with the ground and the environment around it, which again, for me, in my opinion, is a huge immersion killer. Well, lots of track shadows loading in right there. There were even some points in the stream where the cars on the highway weren't moving at all, and there were other cars that were moving and then moving through them. Yeah, we have to work on the cars and the roads, and I know that this is train sim world and not car sim world, but you know, when you have tracks around roads, around highways, and you advertise that this game is supposed to be highly immersive, it's little things like that that make the biggest difference. So there definitely needs to be some improvement in that department. I was pretty happy with the sounds of the loco. I can't really speak to if they're entirely accurate or not. The horn does sound better than the original MP36 for the Peninsula Corridor add-on. It definitely needs to be louder though. I feel like it's too quiet, especially inside of the cab, but I'm not too worried about that personally. I play on PC and I know there's gonna be some sort of modification that comes out at some point. Here's another look at the scenery outside of one of the stations. This is El Monte Track 2, and they did a really good job here with the lining of the trees and adding the brushes and flowers and all of that stuff. Honestly, for Train Sim World 6, because we all know this is gonna end up not happening for TSW5, they definitely need to improve the cars and the roads, because why are there patches of road missing here with dirt underneath? It's like stuff like this shouldn't be happening. And I don't even want to say it's a complete oversight because it's pretty loud and in your face. I don't know how you could miss this. I'm sure they did notice it, but probably didn't want to invest time into fixing it and would rather spend that time working on other things for the route. Again, the scenery, like look at that. Also, yeah, it was kind of worrying with the performance, but again, I'm gonna wait until it comes out and I can get my hands on it myself to judge that. Overall, the scenery is really good. There were a lot of instances of cars just crossing the roads and going through the train at most points. I hope that's also fixed. I know that's realistic to real life, but I'm gonna be honest, if I was a licensor giving my name to Dovetail to put on trains to have in their game, I wouldn't wanna see cars crossing right in front of trains and going through trains. You know, that's a bad look for the licensors, and that definitely could prevent future licensors from coming on board. So stuff like that definitely needs to be looked into for the game. Like, look at how good the track looks when it matches the texture of the ballast. I'm specifically talking about the track and then the middle piece between the other track. Like, it is immersive. It looks like real life. It's when the sunlight is shining directly on it at an angle that the ballast like lights up and is so much brighter than the surrounding rock. You know, like some of you probably know what I'm talking about, but that's a major thing for me, visuals. And then when that happens, like it is right here, they just look like giant plastic track pieces. I really don't understand why so many things that they model and place in this game are so highly reflective. Not everything is ultra reflective. So with this route, I think they definitely did a much better job in terms of night lighting and placing lights where they need to be. It looks a lot better. I don't know, again, if there are any tunnels on this route, so I never got to actually really see that for myself and judge the going in and out of tunnels lighting specifically in the day, but to me at least it looks like a massive improvement over West Coast Mainline South, where a lot of assets were lacking actual light sources. It just looked extremely dark. I think they did a much better job overall here for the San Bernardino line. So conductor mode was actually really neat. I love how you can press the space bar to basically radio the driver and you actually hear commands back. My jaw was kind of on the floor when I first heard that. It's really cool and immersive. The whole process of checking passenger tickets went really well for Matt as he played, but he had a problem with one of the passengers that was sitting in one of the corner seats. I don't know if this is a bug that's going to be worked out in time for release, or if not, is worked out in the future. There goes more floating cars. But it seems like passengers that are sitting in that corner seat have a hard time having their tickets checked. I don't know if that's going to apply for every passenger, but I also remember having that same issue on one of the conductor scenarios that came with Long Island Railroad. So I hope that isn't a common occurring bug, because if so, then you're not going to be able to get a perfect score, especially if someone's sitting in that seat. There were a lot of passengers clamoring onto the train at some point, all just kind of standing there, not really finding a seat. This is more of a general issue with all routes and passengers for all the content that we have, basically, that I think is much needed to improve the routing with them, because that's always been an issue. So I'm sure we're going to run into a lot of issues with passengers, especially in conductor mode. Kind of wasn't surprised by that. I was expecting a few bugs. That was a little disappointing, but we can only hope for improvements there. And this was the passenger that was really giving Matt a hard time on stream. It was like impossible to click on her and get a pop-up to appear, so he had to end up skipping her. And you know, it's stuff like that that will stop you from getting a perfect score. What I want to know, because you know, once the screen comes up and he's checking their tickets, what I want to know is, does this little menu box here list all the stations, or is it just some of them? Because what if you don't know the route and you don't know what stations are coming up or what stations have already passed? Like, how do you know if this is a valid ticket? Like, obviously you can see the date, you can figure that out, but as far as having the correct stops, I guess it is going to require some route knowledge. There was one last night service that they played in the Rodham cab car. Again, I think the lighting looks really good. In my honest opinion though, I feel like the nighttime should be a little bit darker. I was thinking maybe the sun had just gone down, but I feel like it's not quite dark enough outside. I think the lighting looks right in front of the train, and the lighting looks good, of course, where there are individual light sources like on lampposts and on the side of buildings and in front of cars. But generally speaking, I feel like this looks a little too dim for nighttime. I think that should overall be darker, but I know that, you know, when JetWash makes his improvements and stuff, I will be downloading that, because we all know that JetWash comes through when it comes to lighting for this game. Like, look, why is the whole highway so bright? It should definitely not be this bright right next to the train there. I feel like some of these lampposts are definitely emitting a little too much light. They should be more dim with much brighter spots and darker areas between them, but that's just, again, me being picky. Okay, so here's the part of the stream where, you know, they take the camera outside of the train and you can see there were cars literally just stopped on the highway and other cars just continuing to go and drive through them. So coming back to this again, definitely something that needs to be improved. I feel like I'm doing a lot of picky nitpicking in this video, and I'm not just trying to be critical for no reason. I think generally the route looks good, but I'm just pointing out what I think can be improved, and that's it basically, you know? I'm curious on what you guys think about the San Bernardino line overall, what you thought of the lighting, what you think of the timetable, the new loco that's coming, and by the way, the F125 is coming with the route, so you won't need the Antelope Valley line in order to enjoy it. I think the modeling on the stations is good. The lighting could use some work, but it's good. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's unacceptable. I don't think it's trash. If you feel that way, let me know down in the comments below and let me know why you feel like that. That's going to conclude things for me. Just a general overall thoughts on the preview stream and what I think of the route. I'm very excited for the last route showcase, which is the Kinzig Talban. I always try to say that correctly. That's going to be next week, guys. And also early access starts next week, which I'm also very excited for. So I cannot wait to see how the German stuff is. I already know the German route is probably gonna end up being the best of all of them. It'll probably have the best timetable, it'll have the best sounds, the best physics, probably the best lighting, definitely the best scenery. I just feel like Germany stuff usually is top tier most of the time. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, found it entertaining or informative, or just want to support the channel, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you can see every upload that I post here and you're notified of it so you can be one of the first few to check it out. Take care and happy rail simming. Bye guys.